The night sky above the colony world of Haven Prime looked calm, but calmness in space was always a lie. The settlers on the surface were finishing their routines, unaware that warships had already crossed the outer edge of the system. Massive. Alien vessels drifted silently through the void, their hulls glowing with the light of distant stars. They were not here to talk, not here to trade. They had come to a race. Haven Prime had been warned months ago by Earth's command that if trouble came, they must hold out long enough to send a message. But no one believed the warning would be ignored so quickly. Humanity had made its position clear. Do not touch our colonies. Do not test us again. The galaxy had listened, but not everyone had taken the words seriously. The attack began without words. Orbital satellites blinked with static before being torn apart by energy beams. Civilian transports that tried to flee were cut down there, burning fragments falling through the atmosphere like falling stars. Defense cannons on the colony's surface roared to life, their railguns firing steel slugs into orbit for minutes. The humans on the ground felt hope as enemy shields cracked and several alien ships broke apart under the barrage. But the attackers came in endless waves, blotting out the stars with the bulk of their fleet. Alarms wailed across. Every city as power grids strained to keep the defenses alive. Soldiers rushed to the bunkers. Engineers kept the cannons firing. And families huddled underground, listening to the thunder of war above. Inside the command bunker, Colonel Hayes watched the tactical display with cold eyes, red symbols outnumbered. Blue 10-1, and more enemy signatures kept appearing on the edge of sensors. His comms officer shouted updates over the noise, but Hayes already knew the truth. They could not win this fight. Not here, not tonight. Their only chance was to send the proof, to show Earth and the galaxy that the enemy had broken the warning that the line had been crossed. He ordered the transmission prepared, every camera feed, every recording of the burning skies, every scream of the civilians. It would not stop their deaths, but it would light the fuse for something greater. Outside, alien ships poured fire into the cities, melting towers to ash. The ground shook as orbital strikes tore craters where homes once stood. The colony's defense grid burned itself out, leaving gaps that the enemy pushed through. Dropships began descending, black shapes piercing the clouds. The humans fired, back with shoulder cannons, missiles, and desperate courage. They knew they could not repel them, but they fought anyway, slowing the landing forces long enough for the uplink to stabilize. Sparks filled the air as technicians rerouted power. From failing shields into the transmission array, Hayes barked for status, and the reply came, "Signal is ready, sir." The colonel stood in the glow of the holoscreen, watching as the uplink beam pierced the heavens. It carried everything: the images of alien warships, the destruction of their cities, the faces of survivors screaming as fire consumed them. It carried the truth that the warning had been mocked, ignored, and spat on. Somewhere far away, Earth would see. Somewhere far away, the admirals of humanity's fleet would know. Hayes placed his hand on the console, whispering a promise to those who would come after, make them regret this. Moments later, the bunker shuddered as a blast tore through the upper levels. The signal was away, but the end had arrived. Above the colony, alien commanders sneered as their victory unfolded. They had heard Earth's warning before, but to them it was only bluster. Humanity was strong, yes, but the galaxy was vast. One world could burn, and no one would risk everything for it. They believed this was just another lesson in power, another reminder that the old empires still ruled the stars. Yet in their arrogance, they did not realize the danger of what had just been unleashed. That signal, invisible to their scanners, was racing across space towards Sol. Humanity's silent war machine was about to wake. Hours later, when the last fires burned out, and the colony of Haven Prime was nothing but ash and smoke, a quiet message traveled through the void. Across relays, through deep space listening posts, it passed with urgency. In hidden stations orbiting far worlds, human officers straightened as the codes flashed red across their screens. The message was short, raw, undeniable. The enemy has attacked. The warning was broken, Haven Prime has fallen. Humanity must answer. And deep beneath Earth's oceans, where fleets waited in silence, the alarm lights began to glow. The admirals already knew what the council would say. There would be no more warnings. There would be no more restraint. Humanity would rise, and this time, the galaxy would learn what the words "war without limits" truly meant. The ashes of Haven Prime had carried the signal, and now the sky itself would tremble with the answer. Earth did not respond immediately. Silence stretched across Sol, and for a moment, the galaxy believed humanity would hold back again, just as they had done before. But that illusion shattered faster than anyone could imagine. Halls beneath Titan Base, Admiral Reyes stood over a holomap of the galaxy. The red blips of enemy fleets shining like wounds in the dark. His face was calm, almost eerily so, but his eyes burned with determination. Humanity's warning had been ignored, and now the reckoning would begin. Every fleet, every warship, every soldier trained for decades in secret waited quietly for the orders that would change the galaxy forever. Meanwhile, across Earth, news of Haven Prime's destruction spread like wildfire. Citizens watched the reports on massive holoscreens, seeing images of burning cities, destroyed orbital platforms, and fleeing survivors. Unlike past conflicts, there was no panic. There was anger, pure and calculated. Humanity had been patient. They'd waited for the galaxy to heed their warnings, but the galaxy had chosen arrogance over reason. Children clutched their parents' hands, soldiers readied themselves, and engineers continued work in the shipyards. Every launch platform, every hidden dock, every fleet under construction began moving as if responding to a silent command from the planet itself. In the shadows of Sol, humanity's fleets stirred. Ships that had been hidden for decades slipped from cloaked docks into the blackness, their weapon systems humming softly, engines glowing with quiet menace. Each battle group had a target, a mission, a plan crafted from countless simulations. The humans had studied the galaxy for years, its politics, its weaknesses, its prideful leaders. The destruction of Haven Prime was not just retaliation, it was the spark that would light the fire. As they prepared alien spies and probes, intercepted fragments of communication, only to find empty channels, false signatures, and silence. Humanity was already steps ahead, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, fear was growing. The Veraxis ambassador, their claws drumming nervously on the stone table, demanded immediate retaliation. They are hiding something, he hissed. They do not attack, yet they prepare. This is not patience, it is planning. If we wait, it will be too late. The other empires nodded, but none spoke with certainty. They had learned the hard way that underestimating Earth was a deadly mistake. Ambassadors whispered of fleets disappearing, colonies vanishing into the void, and strange energy signatures they could not explain. Some proposed negotiation, others wanted preemptive strikes, but all agreed on one thing: humanity's patience had ended. In the outskirts of the galaxy, human reconnaissance ships had already begun slipping past enemy patrols, mapping supply lines, communication hubs, and fleet positions. Every weak point was logged, every vulnerable world marked. The humans moved like shadows, silent and untraceable, their presence only noticed when it was too late. In secret, engineers worked tirelessly, loading new weapons into ships, recalibrating orbital cannons, and preparing drones capable of moving faster than the eye could track. By the time the first strike occurred, the galaxy would already be caught in a web spun, long before anyone suspected it. Soldiers on Earth's outer colonies felt the tension in their veins. Training simulations had prepared them for war, but nothing could prepare them for the reality of this galaxy-wide awakening. They watched monitors, listened to incoming data, and felt the quiet thrill of purpose. This was not defense. This was the beginning of something unprecedented: humanity, moving from patience to action, from warning to judgment, and in every heart, one thought burned brighter than any fear: the galaxy had chosen wrong. As the first human fleets moved silently into jump gates hidden among asteroids, Admiral Reyes gave the final order: Strike only where necessary. Hit fast. Hit clean. Leave no doubt. Every officer under his command understood the weight of the words. This was not war for conquest. This was war for survival, for respect, for the honor of every colony that had suffered because the galaxy ignored Earth's warning. The moment had come. The storm that had been building for decades was finally ready to break, and in the deep darkness beyond the outer systems, alien fleets stirred. They did not yet know the scale of what they faced. They only knew something was coming, something faster, sharper, and deadlier than anything they had seen. As human ships appeared, like shadows across distant star systems, the first shots were fired, precise and devastating. Supply convoys were obliterated before anyone could call for help. Defensive stations were shredded by unseen weapons. Panic spread among the enemy ranks like wildfire. The galaxy realized, too late, that the humans had never been bluffing. War had begun, and the gathering storm of humanity was moving with perfect precision. Every strike was measured, every fleet coordinated, every target known long before the enemy even realized they were being watched. The galaxy had been warned. Once, now it would learn in fire and steel that humanity did not forgive, did not forget, and certainly did not retreat. The first human strikes were surgical, precise, and terrifying. Across distant star systems, alien fleets had barely registered. A shadow moving along the edge of their sensors when explosions tore through their supply lines. Convoys vanished into fire and debris before any call for help could even be transmitted. Entire fleets were scattered as if caught in invisible maelstroms, their formations shredded by weapons that moved faster than thought. Alien commanders stared at the holoscreens in disbelief, unable to comprehend how a single world could strike with such devastating precision. Humanity had warned them once, and now the galaxy learned the cost of ignoring that warning. On the bridge of the flagship Eclipse, Admiral Reyes watched every strike unfold. His calm eyes scanned the data, the flickering images of destruction, a reflection of his own calculated fury. He did not cheer, nor did he exult. To him, this was merely the first step. Every enemy fleet that fell, every station that burned, every system brought to its knees was a message. Humanity would not allow its warnings to be ignored. The attack was not just revenge, it was a statement of power and inevitability. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and now it would pay. In the Gethi sector, alarm sirens echoed through every command center. Fleets scrambled, but their movements were slow, predictable, and futile. Human strike teams appeared and disappeared, like ghosts, destroying orbital platforms, crippling communications, and neutralizing defensive batteries. Alien pilots, trained to respond to any threat, found themselves outmatched. Their strategies anticipated and dismantled before they could act. For the first time, fear replaced pride. The notion that Earth was weak was shattered in minutes. Across every world, soldiers whispered stories of shadow fleets, of weapons that seemed to bypass all known technology, and of humans who struck without warning or mercy. Back in Earth's control centers, communication channels hummed with activity. Analysts monitored every sector, calculating the next move, predicting enemy reactions before they occurred. Engineers guided fleets across the void, adjusting trajectories mid-flight, rerouting power to shields and weapons in anticipation of counterattacks. The war was not chaotic. It was a symphony of destruction. It's orchestrated by human minds that had waited decades for this moment. Every explosion was deliberate, every strike designed to maximize both physical and psychological impact. Humanity was no longer a minor player in the galaxy. It was a storm no one could evade. Amid the chaos, alien leaders convened in hidden chambers, their voices trembling as they discussed what was happening. The Vraxis ambassador slammed claws against the stone table. This cannot be. How can one planet strike so many systems? Where are their fleets hiding? Others argued, trying to find logic in the devastation, attempting to convince themselves it was a temporary anomaly. But deep inside, each one knew the truth. The humans had prepared for this. Every strategy, every calculation, every fleet movement had been anticipated. Humanity had not just struck, they had dominated in the colonies nearest to the battle zones. Civilians watched the war unfold through sensors and live feeds. Panic rippled through some, but many felt awe. They saw Earth's warning realized in fire and steel. Children whispered stories of invisible ships, of humans who could appear anywhere in an instant. Workers in factories labored harder knowing that the survival of their world depended on the perfection of their creations. Soldiers trained endlessly, mastering tactics that matched Earth's precision. The people of humanity were not merely fighting, they were united in purpose, every mind and every machine moving as one. As the day wore on, entire alien sectors were reduced to chaos. Starports were obliterated, supply chains annihilated, and fleets forced into retreat. Messages of defeat traveled faster than light, reaching capitals and command centers with news too horrifying to ignore. The galaxy had expected a response from humanity, but not like this. It was not just a counterattack. It was a warning etched in destruction. Underestimate us again. The consequences will be total. And in the calm of Titan Base, Admiral Reyes observed the galaxy bending under humanity's power. He knew the campaign was only beginning, that the enemy would regroup, that the Council would scramble to mount a response. But he also knew the lesson had been delivered. Humanity had gone. From patient defender to unstoppable predator. Every strike was a message sent across the stars. Earth would no longer be ignored. The galaxy had learned fire, and humanity would deliver it without hesitation, without mercy, and without limits. The first wave of the war had ended, but the galaxy understood this truth. The humans were not finished. They had only shown the beginning, a glimpse of what was to come. Across every system, fear now ruled, and the Council knew, deep in their hearts, that the storm they had ignored was only growing stronger. The war had spread like wildfire. Human fleets moved through the galaxy with calculated precision, leaving devastation in their wake. Entire alien strongholds that had once seemed invincible now burned beneath coordinated orbital strikes. On the edge of the Zalari system, cities that had lasted for millennia collapsed in seconds under the force of weapons that bent physics itself. Humanity had no intention of slowing down. Every strike was a statement. The galaxy could no longer ignore them. Every world that resisted would feel the full weight of their answer. From the bridge of the flagship Vanguard, Admiral Reyes watched the chaos unfold with an almost clinical calm. His fleets moved like shadows across enemy territories, appearing and vanishing in ways that made pursuit impossible. Rail cannons launched from orbital stations tore through enemy cruisers, energy shields melted under continuous barrages, and planetary defense grids were repurposed to trap entire fleets into kill zones. The humans struck faster than the eye, could track their ships coordinated in formations that were fluid and deadly. To the galaxy, it looked like war itself had changed overnight. On Vraxis Prime, the scene was worse. Alien leaders had long prided themselves on invincibility, yet they were now scrambling to defend their core systems. Communication lines were severed, supply convoys annihilated, and fleets shattered before they could regroup. Even the bravest admirals felt a creeping panic. They whispered of human weapons that could slice through stars and tactics that anticipated their every move. In council halls, accusations flew, blame cast on one another for underestimating Earth, but none of it mattered. The humans had proven that warnings unheeded would be met with overwhelming force. Meanwhile, human colonies that had once been at the fringes of Sol's influence were now strategic fortresses. Mars, Titan, and the orbital stations surrounding them became launch points for devastating orbital strikes. Each equipped with advanced rail cannons and energy weapons capable of leveling entire fleets. Autonomous drones swarmed like predatory insects, intercepting alien missiles and crippling enemy ships in seconds. Engineers, soldiers, and civilians alike worked seamlessly, maintaining constant readiness for every engagement. Humanity was no longer defending, they were dominating. Across the galaxy, fear rippled among civilian populations. Markets emptied as families fled from systems under threat. Soldiers hesitated before joining doomed fleets, and councils argued over whether to surrender. The humans were not indiscriminate in their attacks, yet every strike served as a message. It was not vengeance alone that burned through the stars. It was a demonstration of what happens when patience is ignored. Whole systems that once mocked Earth now whispered prayers, hoping the humans would spare their homes. Alien leaders, desperate to regain control, attempted counterattacks, but it was too late. Human fleets had already anticipated each maneuver, responding with swift surgical strikes that left nothing behind. Entire alien armadas vanished into blackened voids, leaving fragments floating as warnings to those who dared to challenge Earth. Even the mightiest fleets, built over centuries, crumbled under human precision and ingenuity. What the galaxy once considered power now seemed fragile and mortal. In the midst of it all, Admiral Reyes remained a figure of unwavering control. From his command seat, he coordinated attacks across multiple systems simultaneously, every order precise, every movement calculated. He understood the psychological weight of the war as much as the physical one. Humanity was proving a simple, undeniable truth. Ignoring their warnings had consequences beyond comprehension. Every strike was not just destruction, it was a statement of intent, a clear signal that Earth would not be tested again. By the time the sun set on the burned worlds, the galaxy had changed. Systems that once ignored humanity's voice now trembled before it. Alien fleets had learned the cost of arrogance. Civilizations that prided themselves on their military might were forced to reconsider everything they knew about war. Humanity had shown its full power, and the message was clear. The galaxy could no longer act with impunity. Every strike, every burned world, every shattered fleet was a prelude to the next move, and yet the humans did not celebrate. On Earth and its colonies, there was no jubilation, no boasting. Instead, there was preparation, because the war was far from over. The galaxy had been shown fire, and now humanity was ready to unleash it again, wherever it was needed, until the consequences of ignoring their warnings were fully understood. The stars themselves seemed to tremble, for the humans were no longer defending, they were defining the rules of the war. The galaxy had never seen war like this. Entire systems burned under the precision of humanity's fleets, and yet the humans pushed forward, relentless and unwavering. Alien leaders watched from fortified command stations, helpless as their once mighty armadas crumbled under attacks they had never anticipated. Humanity had moved beyond simple defense or retaliation. No, it was a force of judgment, striking at every point the enemy thought was safe. The destruction of Haven Prime had been only the beginning. The full storm was coming, and the galaxy could not hide from it. On Mars, orbital stations glimmered with weapon fire, their targeting arrays sweeping across alien ships as they approached. Human fleets from Titan and the outer colonies moved, in perfect coordination, striking supply lines, command centers, and reinforcement convoys simultaneously. Rail cannons launched with terrifying speed, piercing shields that alien engineers had considered invincible. Missiles that could have leveled planets were intercepted mid-flight by swarms of autonomous drones, while energy weapons shredded cruiser hulls like paper. Every strike was a demonstration of humanity's mastery of both technology and tactics, leaving the enemy scrambling in shock and panic. Meanwhile, in the dark halls of the Galactic Council, fear had turned into despair. The Viraxis ambassador slammed claws against the council table, shouting orders that his fleets could no longer execute. We underestimated them. We underestimated every move they made. Our fleets cannot hold. Other leaders attempted to form strategies, to negotiate, to retreat, but the humans had already anticipated every option. Humanity's movements were not reactive. They were pre-planned, each strike calculated to dismantle not just ships, but the confidence of entire civilizations. The galaxy realized too late that it was trapped in a war it had provoked and could not escape. On the front lines, alien pilots fought with desperation, but their formations fell apart as human ships struck. From directions no one expected, entire fleets were shattered before they could regroup. Communications were jammed or intercepted, leaving commanders blind and vulnerable. On Europa, orbital defenses that had once seemed secure were cut apart with surgical precision, as humans deployed weapons that twisted gravity and tore entire battle groups from their trajectories. Panic spread through the enemy ranks. Morale collapsed faster than their ships, and even the bravest soldiers began questioning whether survival was possible. Yet humanity remained focused. On the ground and in orbit, civilians, soldiers, and engineers worked together as one. Colonies had become fortresses, ready to support the fleets above with orbital batteries, railguns, and autonomous defense systems. Every citizen played a role, whether maintaining ships, repairing shields, or feeding intelligence to commanders. The humans were not fighting out of rage. They were executing a plan refined for decades, a response to a galaxy that had ignored their warnings. Every move sent a message. Humanity had patience, yes, but it had limits. Those limits had now been reached. By mid-cycle, the largest battle of the war erupted in Sol's outer rim. Alien fleets threw themselves at human defenses with reckless abandon, hoping that sheer numbers might overwhelm the precision of Earth's forces. Entire fleets collided in orbital corridors, explosions lighting the void in colors that no human I had ever seen before. Yet even in the chaos, humanity's strategy prevailed. They turned traps into advantages, using gravity wells, decoys, and long-range firepower to isolate enemy formations and destroy them piece by piece. The galaxy witnessed something it had never thought possible: a single species dominating multiple battlefields simultaneously with perfect coordination. And then came the ultimate human strike. Hidden deep within the asteroid belt, orbital rail stations opened fire simultaneously on clusters of enemy ships. Gravity bombs ripped apart cruiser hulls, sending fleets tumbling helplessly into the void. Energy weapons cut channels through warships faster than the eye could follow. Alien commanders realized their mistakes too late. The humans had prepared not just defenses, but annihilation on a scale the galaxy could not have imagined. Even the most powerful fleets, built over centuries, fell beneath the coordinated might of humanity. As the dust settled, the galaxy reeled. Systems burned, fleets were decimated, and morale collapsed. Survivors of the alien armadas drifted home, battered and humiliated, carrying news of human precision, strategy, and merciless execution. Humanity had proven that warnings ignored came with consequences beyond reckoning. And yet, despite the destruction, Earth's fleets did not celebrate. They paused only to regroup, prepare for the next strikes, and maintain discipline. Humanity had reached the breaking point of the enemy, but it had not yet shown all its strength. The galaxy had learned fear, and humanity would ensure it never forgot. The galaxy had hoped that Earth's strikes were calculated warnings, a measured response to provocation. They were wrong. Humanity had been patient, restrained, and precise, but now restraint was gone. The fleets hidden across Sol, Titan, Mars, and the outer colonies moved in unison. A tide of fire and steel sweeping across the stars. Every system the enemy had thought safe became a battlefield. Every fleet they had relied on was targeted. Every command station turned to ash. The war had shifted. It was no longer about defense, or even revenge. It was a war without limits. And humanity set the rules. In orbit above Alpha Centauri, Admiral Reyes oversaw the synchronized assault. Through holoscreens, he watched enemy fleets collapse under gravity mines, orbital bombardments, and coordinated railgun strikes. Ships that had been considered untouchable were torn apart before they could maneuver. Alien admirals shouted orders into silence, only to find their strategies anticipated at every turn. Humanity's fleets struck like predators, invisible until the moment of attack, impossible to counter. It was not chaos, it was precision war elevated to an art form. The galaxy had underestimated patience and coordination, and now it faced the consequences. On worlds across the outer rim, alien civilians fled, watching their cities burn. Their defenses fall, their fleets vanish into the void. Fear became panic as survivors realized that humanity's reach was limitless. Rail cannons fired from hidden orbital platforms, autonomous drones swarmed like deadly locusts, and energy weapons carved through cruisers faster than any human eye could follow. The galaxy had assumed Earth's patience meant mercy, but patience had only been preparation. Every world that resisted would fall. Every fleet that opposed would burn. In hidden command chambers, alien leaders argued frantically. The Viraxis Council convened emergency sessions, debating whether to surrender, negotiate, or flee. But surrender seemed impossible. The humans had demonstrated power beyond comprehension. Negotiation was meaningless. Humanity would not stop until the consequences of ignoring their warning were fully understood. Fleeing fleets were hunted with relentless precision, their paths predicted and destroyed before they could escape. Fear spread faster than light. As the galaxy realized humanity was no longer bound by rules, by diplomacy, or by hesitation. Back on Earth, Titan and Mars, humans coordinated strikes across multiple systems simultaneously. Engineers rerouted energy to weapons that could obliterate entire fleets in a single shot. Colonies provided support with orbital defenses and hidden rail stations. Soldiers trained for decades moved with flawless timing, anticipating enemy movements. Before they happened, humanity fought as a single organism, each ship, soldier, and command center part of a deadly network. The galaxy had never faced such unity and precision, and it could not recover. By the time the first wave of total war swept through the core and outer rim alike, entire empires were shattered, starports were annihilated, supply chains obliterated, and fleets reduced to drifting wreckage. Planets once thought safe became memorials of human retribution, showing the cost of ignoring a warning from a patient species. Alien commanders realized their mistakes too late. Pride, arrogance, and delay had led to a collapse they could not reverse. Humanity had risen from the ashes of patience to the apex of dominance, and the galaxy understood a simple, terrifying truth. There would be no mercy, no negotiation, no second warning. And yet, amidst the destruction, humanity did not celebrate. On Titan, Mars, and Earth, commanders and soldiers worked with calm precision, preparing for the next strike, the next system, the next target. The war without limits was not chaos. It was controlled, measured, and absolute. Humanity had shown its true strength, and the message was clear. The galaxy had been warned once, and the consequences of ignoring that warning would echo across time. When the dust settled and silence fell over shattered systems, the galaxy understood that it had faced something it could never forget. Humanity had risen not just to defend, but to dominate, to enforce a lesson written in fire, steel, and the unyielding will of a patient species pushed to its limits. No empire, no fleet, no world could claim immunity. Humanity had made its point, and the stars themselves trembled beneath the revelation. The galaxy had learned the cost of arrogance, the price of ignorance, and the truth of Earth's full strength. War without limits had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.